For over a decade, a single face became impossible to separate from one word: aliens. Explosive hair, expressive gestures, and an unshakable certainty made this man one of the most instantly identified figures on the entire internet. But strip away the punchline and you find a genuine human being with a real career, a lasting marriage, and a television show that has defied every reasonable expectation placed upon it. So what is the actual story behind the Ancient Aliens guy, and where does he find himself today? That is exactly what we are going to uncover. Long before anyone was laughing at dramatic hand gestures and gravity-defying hair, Giorgio A. Tsoukalos was simply a curious young man searching for direction. He came into the world on March 14, 1978, in Lucerne, Switzerland, the son of a Greek father and an Austrian mother. That bicultural upbringing planted seeds of fascination with ancient civilizations and unexplained historical mysteries early on, and those seeds never stopped growing. Crossing an ocean did nothing to diminish them. By 1998, he had earned a bachelor's degree in communications from Ithaca College in New York, a choice that would turn out to be oddly fitting in hindsight. His first professional chapter, however, had absolutely nothing to do with extraterrestrial visitors or prehistoric monuments. Between 1999 and 2007, he promoted bodybuilding competitions for the International Federation of Bodybuilding and Fitness, including events connected to the legendary Mr. Olympia contest. He even took the director's chair for the IFBB San Francisco Pro Grand Prix from 2001 through 2005. Take a moment with that image. The man the entire internet associates with ancient astronaut theories spent the better part of a decade coordinating competitions built around physiques rather than pyramids. Running quietly alongside that career was something altogether different. From 1999 to 2008, he edited Legendary Times, a publication devoted to ancient astronaut research and deeply tied to the ideas of Swiss writer Erich von Däniken. That relationship carried more weight than it seemed to at the time. Tsoukalos eventually took the helm of the Archaeology, Astronautics, and SETI Research Association, an organization built around von Däniken's framework. Two entirely different worlds, competitive fitness and fringe historical theory, had been developing side by side for years, quietly waiting for the moment they could intersect. That moment came in 2009 when Ancient Aliens launched on the History Channel, centered on the provocative premise that intelligent beings from elsewhere in the universe had walked the Earth in ancient times and left their fingerprints all over the development of human civilization. Tsoukalos emerged as the series' most consistent and memorable presence, returning season after season to make the case that monuments like the Egyptian pyramids, Peru's Nazca Lines, and the ruins of Puma Punku in Bolivia reflected technologies far beyond what those ancient populations could have invented on their own. His screen presence was immediately distinctive. He had no patience for understated delivery. Every argument arrived loaded with theatrical certainty, every claim presented as though the final piece of a cosmic puzzle had just clicked into place. His influence over the series grew significantly by 2016, when he stepped into the role of co-executive producer. He was no longer simply a talking head delivering theories to a camera. He now had genuine creative authority over which directions future seasons would explore. The arc of that transition is genuinely remarkable. A man whose professional roots lay in organizing muscle competitions had become a key decision-maker on one of cable television's most enduring unscripted series. Beyond the flagship show, he kept himself in the public eye through additional projects. He fronted In Search of Aliens, a spin-off that aired for a single season on H2 in 2014, covering ground ranging from the lost city of Atlantis to fringe theories about Nazi experimentation with time. Critical reception landed somewhere between lukewarm and dismissive, with reviewer Jason Colavito noting the show never managed to establish a coherent point of view, falling short even by the relaxed standards of paranormal entertainment. Still, none of that slowed his momentum on the main series, which kept finding its audience year after year. The trajectory of his rise is most striking when you consider how improbable it always looked from the outside. Nothing in his background pointed toward becoming the global face of ancient astronaut theory. There was no master plan, no calculated route toward the kind of recognition he eventually found. What he had instead was an unusual combination of genuine enthusiasm, total conviction in ideas that most people dismissed outright, and a personality that cameras seem to amplify rather than flatten. That kind of authenticity resists manufacturing. Television executives cannot build it in a room. It either exists or it does not, and in his case it existed in abundance. Sometimes the most unlikely paths produce the most lasting impressions, and his story makes that point more vividly than most. That television career alone, though, does not explain how he crossed over from cable personality into something far more pervasive. That leap happened because of something almost laughably small, one frozen frame. The gap between television fame and internet fame operates by completely different logic, and few people demonstrate that contrast as clearly as Tsoukalos. Sometime around November 2010, a single captured image from an Ancient Aliens episode started circulating across online forums, eventually finding its way onto 4chan's random board before radiating outward into the broader early internet. The image caught him mid-gesture, hair fanned out in every direction, hands suspended in the air as though he were on the verge of revealing something that would change everything. Someone attached the setup line, "I'm not saying it was aliens, but," and the format took on a life entirely its own. The meme worked not because it was mean-spirited but because it was immediately legible. You did not need to have watched a single episode to understand exactly what was being communicated. The image captured something universally recognizable, the particular energy of a person presenting completely unsubstantiated speculation with the full confidence of established scientific consensus. As Dictionary.com noted, the format perfectly replicated the rhetorical move Tsoukalos made regularly on screen, dressing intuitive leaps in the clothing of logical conclusions. That quality made the template transferable to virtually any situation involving an absurd explanation stated with a straight face. Misplaced keys, strange sounds at night, inexplicable traffic, anything worked as long as the punchline landed with that same unearned certainty. Where many people thrust into similar internet spotlights would have retreated or pushed back, Tsoukalos did neither. During a Reddit AMA in 2015, he said plainly that he loved what had happened, describing the meme spread as something he considered genuinely flattering. That answer caught a lot of people off guard. Rather than treating the joke as an attack on his credibility, he absorbed it as proof of reach, repurposing internet mockery into a broader platform for the ideas he had been championing for years. That mindset opened opportunities that conventional television exposure never would have created on its own. One tangible example arrived in 2021 when he appeared as himself on Resident Alien, the SYFY comedy series, stepping into the role of a convention panel host built entirely around ancient astronaut theory. The show's main character described him on screen as that high-haired gentleman, a line that worked precisely because the meme had spent a decade conditioning audiences to recognize exactly what that phrase meant. The following year brought a second cameo, confirmation that the bit had landed well enough to revisit. Very few media personalities ever reach the point where they can participate knowingly in their own mythologized public image. He not only reached that point but seemed entirely comfortable there. The longevity of the meme itself is worth pausing on. Data compiled by Kiddle Encyclopedia showed that between June 2024 and May 2025, the Ancient Aliens meme template was still generating thousands of monthly searches alongside terms like meme generator. For context, most internet memes collapse within weeks or, at most, a few months. A format rooted in a screenshot from 2010 still driving search traffic more than 14 years later is genuinely unusual, particularly when the staying power rests almost entirely on one person's facial expression and hairstyle. Countless pieces of writing over the years have tried to make sense of that hairstyle, some treating it as a deliberate personal statement, others analyzing it as an accidental piece of visual branding. Nearly all of them arrived at the same conclusion. Whatever someone thought of ancient astronaut theory as a field of inquiry, the image of Tsoukalos presenting his arguments with theatrical conviction had embedded itself into internet culture in a way that functioned independently of the show it came from. The meme existed in its own lane, running parallel to his television work without requiring it as context. This raises a genuinely interesting question. Does becoming a recurring punchline erode professional standing? Or does it create an entirely separate form of cultural relevance that runs alongside the original work without diminishing it? For Tsoukalos, the evidence points clearly toward the second. Meme saturation never caused Ancient Aliens to lose seasons or pushed him toward the margins of the franchise. If anything, it likely funneled an entirely new generation of viewers toward a History Channel show they would never have encountered otherwise. Viewers who arrived through humor and stayed out of genuine interest. That feedback loop between ironic attention and sincere engagement is rare and difficult to sustain. Most online phenomena collapse under the weight of their own repetition. His somehow kept refreshing itself, pulling in different audiences for different reasons across more than a decade, none of them cancelling out the others. What came next, though, moved the conversation into considerably less comfortable territory. Because behind all the memes and the viewer numbers and the convention appearances, a serious and persistent challenge was building. And it never really quieted down. Sustained success built on fringe ideas tends to attract sustained pushback from people who study those subjects professionally, and Ancient Aliens proved no exception. Scientists working in archaeology, history, and cosmology spent years registering their objections to the series, characterizing its episodes as speculative far beyond any defensible threshold, built on the casual premise that extraterrestrial visitors were effectively walking fixtures of the ancient world. The criticism was never aimed exclusively at Tsoukalos, but being the franchise's most visible presence meant he absorbed a disproportionate share of the scrutiny. Kenneth Feder, a credentialed anthropologist, became one of the more persistent voices in that debate. In 2018, speaking publicly about the show, Feder argued that ancient astronaut theory sustains itself through a deliberate ignorance of how ancient peoples actually engineered and built things. He pointed to what some academics call temporal chauvinism, the unconscious bias that treats ancient humans as fundamentally incapable of sophisticated achievement without external assistance. His position was that credible historians and engineers had already done the work of explaining how structures like Mayan temples were built, and that reaching for alien intervention as an alternative was not bold thinking but rather an unnecessary rejection of available evidence. The criticism extended into territory even more charged than engineering debates. Wikipedia's coverage of the In Search of Aliens spin-off notes that the Southern Poverty Law Center weighed in on the broader Ancient Aliens franchise, characterizing it as promoting a form of racist pseudo-scholarship. The concern centers on a recognizable and troubling pattern. When the show encounters remarkable ancient achievements produced by non-European civilizations, including those of ancient Egypt, Mesoamerica, and South America, it consistently reaches for alien explanations. Similar achievements associated with European cultures rarely receive the same treatment. Critics argue this pattern carries an implicit message that certain peoples required outside help to accomplish what others did through their own ingenuity, an idea with a deeply uncomfortable history. Tsoukalos has never presented himself as an academic. His degree is in communications, and he has not claimed otherwise. But that honesty has not fully neutralized the criticism directed at him, because his repeated appearances as a de facto expert on a History Channel production create an impression that polished presentation and confident delivery alone can sustain. Audiences without prior familiarity with archaeological scholarship have reasonable grounds to assume that someone featured this extensively in this context carries relevant academic credentials. Critics have pushed back on that assumption consistently and without much sign of letting up. His own signature phrasing has drawn attention on its own terms. The construction ancient astronaut theorists say yes does specific rhetorical work. It presents an interpretive leap as though it reflects something approaching scholarly agreement, implying a community of recognized experts where critics would argue none credibly exists. Media literacy advocates have flagged this as a technique that softens the boundary between entertainment and education in ways that can genuinely mislead viewers who encounter it without much prior context. None of this criticism has visibly altered his approach. He has kept defending ancient astronaut theory across every available platform, consistently framing mainstream science as too quick to dismiss unconventional possibilities rather than too slow to validate them. Whatever drives that consistency, genuine personal conviction, or the kind of commitment that comes from building an entire career on a single premise, the practical result has been the same. The academic challenge never stopped, and the show never stopped either. Both ran forward simultaneously, each apparently indifferent to the other's continued existence. That peculiar coexistence between serious intellectual rejection and sustained commercial viability is one of the stranger features of his story, and it sets up a natural question for anyone who has followed him across the years. Where does all of it actually leave him right now? The answer is still very much in the game. 15+ years attached to the same franchise would strain most television relationships, but as of 2026, Tsoukalos and Ancient Aliens remain firmly connected. The show has reached its 22nd season, with new episodes confirmed to have aired on the History Channel in early 2026, per Rotten Tomatoes listings. That places it among the longest-running unscripted series in cable television history, a fact that carries weight regardless of anyone's position on the content itself. The path to that milestone has included turbulence. Recent seasons have been accompanied by scheduling irregularities, including reports of planned episodes being pulled from broadcast slots in early 2026 and replaced temporarily with unrelated reruns. But the production has continued generating new material rather than quietly winding down, which suggests the network still calculates that the show earns its place in the lineup even as the streaming era reshapes what cable audiences look like. On the personal side, Tsoukalos keeps things relatively quiet. He and Crix Biebel, a glass artist and jewelry designer who launched her studio Crix Biebel Creations in 2006, married on March 10, 2013. Her work involves borosilicate glass, metal, and leather, and her designs carry names like the Domed Universe Ring, hinting at a shared aesthetic sensibility even if she has not aligned herself publicly with ancient astronaut theory specifically. The couple has avoided tabloid attention, with no credible reports of significant personal difficulties. They live in Los Angeles. Professionally, his footprint has continued growing rather than contracting. His co-executive producer credit gives him real influence over the creative direction of future seasons, not just a recurring presence on camera. He has spoken about personally visiting the majority of sites that feature prominently in the show's claims, a level of investment that, whatever one thinks of the underlying theory, reflects something more than surface-level television commitment. His reach beyond the flagship series has expanded as well. Podcast appearances, convention engagements, and guest spots across a wide range of platforms have kept him in front of audiences who may never tune into cable television at all. Conversations on programs ranging from Coast to Coast AM to the Joe Rogan Experience have extended his presence into corners of the media landscape that did not exist in anything like their current form when he first appeared on screen. In an environment where streaming and podcast consumption increasingly outpace traditional broadcast viewing, that cross-platform fluency matters considerably. Celebrity net worth puts his accumulated wealth at around $4 million, a figure that reflects 2 decades of steady work across television, public appearances, and related ventures rather than any single large windfall. It places him comfortably among successful niche media personalities, far below the stratosphere of mainstream celebrity wealth but meaningfully established by any reasonable comparison within the world of fringe and alternative content. So what is the final picture? A man who spent his 20s promoting bodybuilding competitions and editing a fringe magazine somehow became the world's most recognized face associated with ancient astronaut theory, then became one of the internet's most durable memes, and has now spent well over a decade doing both at once without either lane cancelling the other out. He never left. He never reinvented himself into something unrecognizable. He simply kept doing the same thing with the same intensity, season after season, platform after platform, and the audience kept finding him. Whether through curiosity, amusement, or genuine belief, people kept paying attention. And in media, sustained attention is just about the only thing that truly matters.